Hey kids, welcome back to the channel. Sometimes concepts and the need for them, they arise when there's a need for them. Not really because there are simple ways of describing things. Masculinity, femininity, and toxic masculinity. That's a hot potato. Not for me, really. I don't get why it's hot, or I do get why it's hot. I just think the people who think it's a problematic thing, well, they're dumb. And there's a lot of dumb people out there. Um, what is hot? What is toxic masculinity? Well, it is masculinity gone wrong. Masculinity that is taken to a point, a place where it becomes unhealthy. Unhealthy for the surrounding people getting affected by it, of course, and actually unhealthy for the person expressing it. Because it is going to be almost always connected to bad mental health. And that is a very problematic topic when it comes to men, because so much of the ideals that are projected by toxic masculinity goes against good mental health. We know that for a fact. There's this clear connection between bad mental health, depression, and the worst cases of that, and toxic masculinity, because it is about ideals and not understanding that the world is complex and that defining what is feminine and what is masculine is difficult without creating, values. It is quite easy to define feminine things in a non-negative manner. It is not without complication, no, but it is a lot easier than it is to define masculine things in the same way. The reason? Well, history. If you look at history, many of the ideals projected through masculinity have been also very much connected to really negative things, like violence, especially. But in modern times, we also realize it's very deeply connected to bad mental health. I like Stoicism. Stoicism is a quite masculine ideal of, controlling your emotions and not reacting or acting when you can't do anything about a problem. The Stoic ideals have their place and value, for sure, but they are not easy to master, especially if you try to combine them with other problems you might have at the same time, or other ideals you have at the same time. The Stoic warrior archetype is the most problematic, because this is a person that don't vent anything. They bottle up things inside. They don't talk. They don't express anything. They simply, bottle it up, and and sooner or later that bottle explodes, and you start to feel really bad in a way that is impossible to get around. And when people start feeling bad, several things can happen. There can be self-hate, which is problematic, where you start to become depressed and struggle with depressive symptoms. But it can also be channeled and leashed towards your surrounding, towards other people. And it is very much in that instance when toxic masculinity becomes very clear. You start to project ideals around you where you, because of your self-hate and your problems with yourself, you start to attack people around you. Start to spill out hate. You start to attack and diminish and, simply make other people feel bad about themselves. People like Andrew Tate is a good example. Now, I know there's a caveat here. Some people who are like him don't necessarily self-hate themselves very much. There's another aspect of this that toxic masculinity can thrive with, and that is the lack of empathy. People who are very narcissistic, people who are psychopathic, sociopathic, people who are in some way or another suffering from empathic problems, they are the perfect candidates for being a toxic male. Well, they are male, of course. Otherwise, it's probably going to express itself in another way. And yeah, this is a plague on society now, and probably has been for a long time. The difference is that now, in the last 100 years, people have, spoken up against it, against the ideals. You could act out on it probably in a whole other way in the Victorian England and medieval times and so on than you can today. But I think we live in a time of not only are we more enlightened today, but we are also seeing reactions. And people like Andrew Tate is a reaction of criticism of toxic masculinity. And the whole concept, the definition of this is probably in its way also a reaction. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that are insecure, that are fragile, that will be susceptible to toxic masculinity. Especially young men seeking identity, seeking stability, who are, well, not necessarily feeling bad, but on the cusp of, struggling with life, at least, who will do so. Because it's a clear and very fine label, that strong, silent, manly man that Jordan Peterson talks about. Well, just look at the man. Look at Jordan Peterson. Does he look like a man who feel healthy? I'm not putting him down. I'm not, diminishing anything about his personality or anything like that. He is probably someone who struggles a lot. But he is projecting outwards ideals that neither he or anybody else can live up to, really, without problems. I think the simple solution to all of this is not to worry so much about what is manly and what is feminine, and just live, just do things, be happy. Because manly and feminine, men and women, that is sometimes quite vague. Especially when you leave the concepts behind of genitals. When you just have to look at psychological things and traits and so on. When you do that, it's much easier just to, well, not try to live by these ideals. Especially if you want to feel okay mentally. That's my 5 cents on this, and sure, if you disagree, let me know why. If you're just going to rant, well, do so. It helps my algorithms as well. But don't prove my point by being a jerk. Try to be a positive role model instead. That is probably the least toxic masculine thing you can do. Have a good one.